Jumpa Dietia, Timothy, and Unquato, Era1 Radio. Oh, and Pampuma, Asam Pampuma, and Ratumuma, Era1, Yellow Pampuma.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to welcome you guys back again. I know it's been a while since we've actually been online after about 45 weeks hiatus. We are back. We would like to welcome you guys, to everyone watching us on YouTube, Facebook, and other platforms that we have out there, audio, as well as other channels. I would like to welcome my fellow host, King Misty, is joining us all the way from Ghana as usual, and as well, Jeff and Hammond. Thank you guys for joining us today. We have been gone, guys, for about 5 weeks now, and we seem to have a lot to talk about today. We have a lot on our agenda to talk about, but as usual, we start with our session. Which we like to, funny, but sadly and painfully true. So I'm not sure if any one of you guys watching, listening, is aware of the 2022 Commonwealth games that usually happen in the UK, and most countries actually, to any country that's invited actually ends up with a lot of participants. Ghana actually ended up with with, I believe, I'm not sure if it's 24 delegates. Out of the 24, 17 people, quote unquote, went missing, and after after the whole games, but for some reason they were not found in their hotel rooms or nothing like that. All the bags were packed up. Everything is gone. Now, this, I know it sounds funny, but the painful part is it actually did happen, and they actually were able to find most of them, if not all of them, who were actually just put on a plane back to Ghana. So as we speak, they are all accounted for according to officials. But it just speaks to most of the things that we do discuss, most of the things that we talk about accountability, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna give everybody a chance to definitely just say something about it. But before we actually move on to that, just a quick highlight on what we're going to talk about. Obviously, we're going to talk about Black Stars, where we are in terms of preparation. We're also going to talk about the owner of Napoli making a comment about signing African players, and the contract stipulations surrounding them forfeiting African Cup of Nations. Obviously, we are going to talk about the new sponsorship that we have, and last but not least, if time permits, we're definitely going to touch base on our former captain and leader. Asamoah said he's ready, and most of the players are actually pushing for him to actually play in the World Cup, given that they want to send him off right, and those are the actual statements that the players made. So again, I'd like to welcome you guys. Misty, I'd like you to go first. I mean, what's going on with your delegates, man? How did they end up missing in the UK?
Okay, so it's been long. Yeah, I miss you guys, and I'm happy to be back here. Right. What you are giving us fake and wrong information.
Thank you. It was only one person who went missing.
It was only one person that was missing, and the person has been found. How come Ghana is not that bad for 24? This is not the 90s. I'm telling you. This is not the 90s where people run away. delegates and the coaches that went are ex-athletes who are actually citizens of the United States who are like well-to-do people. Some of them are even lecturers and other things in top universities here. They will go this. So it's wrong and fake news. It's not
I
true.
actually started with you because I know the passion that you have for the nation, and I know how much you would support it, and I know how you would actually defend it. But I mean, I think we're, and I think for the most part, it's not even about this particular issue. I think it speaks more of our nature and the kind of story or news that surrounds. But Jeff, I want you to take a crack at it before we move to the next.
I mean, I don't blame the guy. It's an opportunity, right? No, but I mean, I think a lot of what I always say is when you're cheating the system, it feels good in the moment. And two negative things that happen. One, it's like there's always going to be consequences. There's always going to be repercussions. But then two, it's not about you. It's the opportunity for the person behind you who now has to go through an extra maybe security clearance process or something like that just to get the opportunity, or they probably don't get the opportunity altogether. So for me, it fits within the Ghanaian narrative of every man for himself. He's not thinking about who's behind him. He's not thinking about the repercussion for Ghana. No, he's just like, I see an opportunity for myself and I'm going for it. So, yeah, going on to the second one you mentioned, the Napoli owner and the comments about AFCON players. I, like, there are racists in Italy. That's not news. If you make that breaking news, people will flip from the channel. One, they're racist, but then I think two is just for me, my take on it is if I'm an African player right now who plays for Napoli, or I'm an African player who gets an opportunity, I will turn it down. Like, yeah, maybe we're not the movers and shakers of Italian football right now, or ever maybe will be, but he's shown very clearly that he's racist. So for me, that's not where you need to go earn your daily bread. You could do that somewhere else, and especially in this climate where I feel like, yeah, you have like outright racist people, but then you also have we're in a world today where I'm not gonna say we're in a post-racial society or anything like that, but we're in a world today where people are also very sensitive, and have a lot of sensibilities around that. That I think if you stand up today and say, "Hey, I'm a Napoli player. I'm going to void my contract, whatever the repercussion is, whatever. I don't care," just to make a stand. I feel like there might be teams out there who might give you a chance. But for me, I think he's more so shooting himself in the foot, making a statement like that because right now it's like if I'm a Napoli player or if Napoli is scouting for players and you come and watch me, I'll tell you, Master, don't bother. Like, I'm not going to play for you.
True.
And I think we need to start exercising that agency that we have. But unfortunately, we're talking about Africans, we're talking about Ghanaians. If the check is right, somebody will do it, and we'll prove him right. So it's a human nature, human condition. There's nothing you can do about it.
I'm gonna see maybe you can touch base on it and just talk
Oh,
about it.
okay. So I have two sides to this issue. First and foremost, this is something that we shouldn't condone, we shouldn't support. It's of course it's racist. He didn't speak raw. It wasn't necessary for him to even make that statement. And I think FIFA should even pick this up. I don't know if it's possible, or his country or his FA, Italian FA could do something about it. But the truth is, this is something most European club owners and team managers do because of the AFCON, but they don't just mention it. You understand? So Mourinho did similar thing. I remember how many times the ACM played in an AFCON. Right before an AFCON, you hear that, oh, ACM is injured. The next 2 weeks, when the AFCON begins, ACM is training. He has quickly recovered. These things go on, but they just don't mention it. You understand? So, of course, because he voiced it out, it's not right. His FA should do something about it. It's so racist. It wasn't even necessary, but this is something we should look at as an African continent if that's what we want to do with the time and deadline, like when we play our AFCONs. Because The sad part is our players can't be in the continent. They need to go out there for the exposure and other things. So are we going to follow what they want or play according to their calendar, or are we going to use our own calendar, which is also against our climate because in June, July it rains in Africa, and it's very difficult to play an Afcon tournament in the rain because most of our stadiums are not even covered. So that's what we should. Another point I think we should look at. But of course, what he said was totally rubbish. I don't think it was
I think when it comes to that particular situation, I think I can argue for both sides. One, being the fact that I'm looking at it from maybe the player's point of view, as well as the manager or the owner's point of view, as well as the political or just the general aspect of him being racist. Now, let's look at this, right? Khalidou Koulibaly missed several games during the. Obviously, they went on to win the African Cup of Nations. They missed several games during the Napoli the African Cup of Nations. They had Osimhen out there, and they had another two African players on their roster. If we have any history about Napoli and the way they're heavily into signing African players because of the way they play, and historically that's how it's always been. Now with Koulibaly being gone, they conceded more goals than they had ever considered the prior year. So as an owner of a team, I mean, I'm not justifying his actions. What he said was outright wrong. But again, we have to look at it this way. He was bold enough to say the things that some of the players are actually experiencing behind closed doors that we don't get to hear.
Mm-hmm.
We heard what is it? Liverpool's coach saying that
One of
African
the racists.
he said the same thing. Journalists actually forced him to apologize. And what was the excuse? English is not my first language, so I don't understand what I said. No one said anything about it. The English Premier League did not, say anything, but because this man is actually seeing the impact and the strength of the African players on there, he's actually voicing that, hey, when you guys leave, this is the whole, like, these are the holes that you guys create. So again, I'm gonna argue for his side, right? But also not argue against them because I mean, if I look at it from, my perspective, given my skin color and where I'm from, obviously that is a little racist and offensive to me. But as a football player, it actually tells you about how much you're valued, within the team. Maybe the way he went about it. What if he just said it in secret? Would he have been racist, or would he have been, because that's what a lot of the players, just like you're saying, how many times did Essien not play for the national team? How many times did Stephen Appiah not come down? How many times did Suleiman Tari? Matter of fact, how many
And
times has Jordan Ayew been injured? How many times have all these great players that we need been injured? Partey doing the same thing when he joined Arsenal a few, as of last year. So again, these are the things that I believe the players are going through, like under the carpet or behind the scenes, that we don't get to see. The coaches are not coming out to say, the owners are not coming out to say. But when he comes out, we see him as a bad person. But I think it's a good thing that he came out because then I expect, and I was reading an article. It could be wrong, it could be right. That was one of the reasons why Koulibaly actually kind of came to Chelsea, because Chelsea was kind of chasing him as of last year. He didn't want to come, but given that he made that comment, he wanted to get out of it because he really wanted to play for the African continent. But again, Jeff, I'm really gonna have you go, but this one, I have a follow up question, and I always ask about it. Is there something that we can do, given I know Africa as a continent is really huge, but we play this competition every 2 years, and it's been like a topic of discussion where we don't have good infrastructure. Is there any way that we can shape it in a way that I'm not saying we need to conform to the way of a racist, but again, like I said, I can argue both sides too. So yeah.
so I think for me, it goes back to one of the things that Amisi said, right? It's not like we arbitrarily pick the timing for for AFCON, right? It's what works for our climate, is what works in our region. I'm sorry, right? And the thing is, I'm personally just tired of accommodating white people. Like, we don't have to accommodate them, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like the way I'm looking at it, it's from a business standpoint, 100%. You have Koulibaly, who is like a key asset in your team, right? And you've realized the benefit of having him, right? Now, based on that perception or based on that opinion that he has, Koulibaly has left. He made $33 million off of him, 33 million pounds, or however much they sold him for, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, it comes with benefits. When you sign a contract, there are benefits and there are risks. It's a risk that comes with it. He's African. He plays for, and to me, I'm not going to place any club soccer. I mean, I'm any club football league or anything like that over a country, because 2 years ago, during 2020, during the pandemic, when they had to move the Euro around, guess what? The clubs were able to accommodate, the Euro schedule. We're about to play the World Cup, right? With the Germany and Brazils of the world involved, we're able to accommodate that. I'm not necessarily saying that they need to accommodate our schedule to fit their schedule, but when the season kicks off, we all know when the AFCON is happening, and you need to plan around that. I am sorry, because we can't accommodate you to put ourselves in an inconvenience, right? As much as, like, yes, is there an opportunity for us to sit down and potentially figure out, is there some timing? The timing that works for them, which is a timing that works for their climate and whatnot, which is when they have their breaks, doesn't work for us. And it's like, on account of that, we're not now about to say, oh, well, the timing doesn't work for us, but it's really an inconvenience for you, because let's call it what it is. It's an inconvenience. You're not losing the player forever. You're inconvenienced, right? So if you're saying that inconvenience is so much that a whole country and a whole continent have to put their priorities to the side to accommodate, I'm sorry, Napoli is not. If let it come from a bigger team to even start with. I know what you're saying around the bigger teams feel this way about it, but at the end of the day, it's like you have to accommodate it. If not, and I think, to me, what I'm happy about is he's made his mind up that he's not going to sign any AFCON players. That's fine. That's fine. Don't like. It's like the NBA right now. They've been impacted by the Olympics, right? They are impacted whenever the Olympics happen. But guess what? They suck it up, because they see it as there's a higher priority to playing for your country than playing for the club, as much as the club pays you, right? But like, everybody accommodates it because of what it is. And so going into it, you already know that this is coming along, right? This is going to happen. If you're saying that, you're telling me that he's willing to forego a player like Koulibaly over, say, what, 3/5 or 4/5 of the whole season, because he's going to only lose him like 1/5 of the time, and he's willing to forego his services for the whole season instead of losing it 1/5 of the time. Let him lose it. That's why Koulibaly has left, right? So I'm not necessarily saying that there is no solution out of it, but to take that stance of, I'm going to stand here and you have to meet me where I am, it's what we've done with white people since forever, right? And he's not sitting there even thinking through, okay, what is a potential common ground that we can find to make this work? He's not thinking about that, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if you're saying these African players are so important to your team that when one player leaves, you have to now take on more goals that you've taken, then maybe you should plead with your league to say, hey, look, instead of us trying to change what countries are doing, us as a commercial entity within Italy, within one country, maybe we can also put our games on hold for that 2-week period while they play AFCON. That has not even crossed their minds. Why? Because white problems are bigger than black problems. So that's where I'm coming from. And that's what, for me, I'm seeing like the racial dog whistle in there. It's, you're not even thinking about, well, why are they like, if you think about it, right? Have we purposefully said, yeah, we can have this games any time of the year, but we're going to choose to do it? And of course not. After a few years, we've realized that it's an inconvenience, but there's a reason why it's not changed overnight, because there are restrictions and the constraints on both sides. So if he's kind of having a conversation where we're sitting down to figure out, if he's beginning that conversation where we can sit down and figure it out, I am all for it. Hey, let the right representatives from CAF go and have a conversation and figure out what works for both. But in a mutually beneficial solution, each side is going to have to, like, commit to something and lose something out of it, right? That conversation is not even starting from there. It's starting from, it's an inconvenience for me. I lose money, so you guys need to like essentially either cancel it or accommodate me. That's great. You go sit in that corner, and we're gonna do what we're gonna do until you're willing to have an adult conversation. That's why I feel the way I feel about it.
I mean, see, I do have a lot to say, but I want you to, if you have something to say, I want you to, before I actually just, say what it is I have to say. Thank you for that, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So like I totally agree with that, and we are at the point where the European teams or UEFA in particular should get to the point that they should accept that African players are very necessary to their leagues.
Yep.
The see, you can mention the top five leagues and leave out African players from each of the leagues. In England,
Mm,
you can mention the Salah before Mani left. Mani in France, there are a whole lot. In Germany, in all the top five leagues. In Italy, this Napoli Chukwueze, there are a lot of them. So they should get to the point that yeah, African players are necessary, are important. We need them in our leagues to make our leagues thrive. Okay, so then when it gets to the AFCON, we are going to give them at least a 1 month break, maybe January, where it's also cold there. Okay, so we break so they'll be able to play the AFCON. And this is just every 2 years. And that's so easy. If they value our players, they'll do that for us. You think if it was the Messi and the South Americans who had their leagues and their tournaments during that time, they're not going to do the same for them?
They would.
Can they afford to let Neymar, Messi, and all those people leave their leagues and go back to their country to play? They would have done the same for them. So they should respect us and know that we are of value to them. And of course, because go to Aubameyang and all those players are playing so well and making the leagues and making their leagues valuable. You understand? So they need us. I don't even know if you have an African player union in Europe where they can also go on strike and other things to fight for this because it's very important. If you can do same, you when it gets to the South Americans, it's a different story. When it gets to Europe, it's different. When it comes to Africa, then you are trying to control us because we are poor or because we are suffering or because we are there for money or something. It's not fair. That is something I think UEFA, and I don't know what CAF is even doing about it. This statement should have been even, CAF president should have taken it up, reported him to FIFA, so they find this thing and they make a case for our players. It's not fair. You understand?
I mean, the CAF president, I think they condemned what he said from what I read. But I mean, that's just saying I don't agree with what he said, and that's the extent of it. To respond to
Yeah,
what you were saying,
condemnation is nothing. You
yeah,
understand? So you should take this up because our players are making their leagues very. Everyone watches the Premiership because Salah will be playing. How many top players can you mention in the Premiership without any African player?
yeah,
You understand?
yeah,
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing where, I kind of agree with you guys. Well, I think if anyone who loves the game of football can actually just look at Jeff, please look at the comment section. I think there's a comment addressed to you. You could, you can probably address it later. But well, what I'm saying, if you know the game of football, even with any African player, right, naturalizing for any other European nation out there, those players stand out more than any European player out there. Well, given that the likes of these skillful Messi, Ronaldo, and Messi, which is just one out of the the haystack. But you look at these players, and then we have to put them on a pedestal. But again, CAF went to FIFA back in 2020, and I remember this. They actually preached the idea of suspending all international because they did it right during the Euro. What do they do during Euros? They suspend almost
mm-hmm.
all international. I mean,
Club
club
and
level,
yeah,
and they
FA.
call it international break, right?
Yeah.
So they get to play all the Euros, and then the African clubs tend to
And
to play
Sam,
friendly.
this is not to cut you off. This is not even for the Euros tournament itself. It's for
Yeah,
qualifiers too.
there you go. And that's the thing, Jeff. And right, but then when it's come to, but this is the thing, Jeff. See, my thing is though, FIFA kind of urged AFCON, I mean CAF to consider playing the game every 4 years. That's the only way that they feel like they can push for maybe clubs around the world to actually kind of go on break. And according to reports, the most that they could give the players is 3 weeks, which is very, very unfair, because when it comes to the Euro, we play for like a whole year. And again, it's gonna go hand in hand in this, right? And we get like what three almost like 2.5 months of break during every year at the end of every season. Now, FIFA kind of urged CAF to kind of make it every 4 years, and they insisted no, they're going to keep the 2 years because Africa as a continent is so huge, and we have so many countries, and I think they think that 2 years is actually going to bring folks out, is going to put them in the spotlight and everything. Now, this is my thing. I think that is really not the case, and I think the 2 years is actually hurting us. That is my thing. It's only hurting us because we cannot advertise as much as we want to, and the game is not starting to be fun as much as it's supposed to be anymore, right? If you
because of
watch
the 3 years.
club levels, if you anticipate the club games coming on every weekend, but every time there's Euros come up, every time there's the Asian Cup that comes every 4 years, every time there is that World Cup, you get excited because it doesn't come often. We can just take a look at this, African Cup that just
Some,
happened.
some,
It did not even fill the
some.
whole
Is the
stadium.
same. Is the same FIFA. Please let me. Is the same FIFA who is now proposing that the World Cup is held every 2 years.
Yep.
You understand? So
That
it
was very
means
Because
we
of
are
the
even
number
wiser
of
than FIFA.
No, I'm not saying that that's not a thing, right? But the World Cup is different from a continental. The World Cup is global. That's the thing.
Really?
I'm not gonna be comparing the World Cup to, and I'm saying I could play the devil's advocate and play both parts, right? And I'm just saying the World Cup is global. It consists of the whole world. And the thing, people miss the World Cup. But the African Cup, we're losing. I feel like we're losing quality in African Cup of Nations. And I feel like if we
by playing more frequently.
Jeff, tell me the last time you got
No,
interested in African Cup of Nations.
but that's what I'm saying. To your point, the point you're making, I'm not saying it's not a valid point. What the correlation you're making is what I don't see, right? Just because that what you just said is true doesn't mean that if we make it every 4 years, then we'll start seeing more interest. No,
I kind of feel like if you
those are
miss like
two
the
different things.
no, if you miss the game of football, right? I mean, I don't want to divert from what I mean
Yeah,
again
no, go ahead.
what he said, but I mean, if you miss the game of football so much, I think it'll like we can actually just fight kind of what the Asian Cup did. They fought for it, and now they play within a time where all like the whole league around the world called an international break, right? And I know they did that just to give the Asian Cup a chance to play because they have these players at the time they had to play like Song who came up, they had to play I forgot his name playing for United at the time.
Jason Park or whatever his name
Yeah,
was.
there's some park and everything. They're all advocating for that, right? But they put them in that month where they call international break. And I'm just saying, if Africa as a whole, right, if the leaders can actually find a way to strategize, and I'm not saying we should conform to their rules, right? We should do what is gonna help us and everything. Maybe the leaders in there obviously need to just push for owners like the Napoli owners to be punished and everything by just coming out to say this. But again, he is just saying the same things that players are going through.
I get that, Sam. So let me respond to that. And I think this is I actually the funny thing is I agree with the fact that we need to sit down and rethink CAF, the scheduling for it, right? Because if also when you look at it from a revenue generating standpoint, if there's a Liverpool and City game on the same time the CAF final is on, I'm sorry, people are not going to watch the CAF final, right?
That's it.
And that's like the biggest game of the tournament. So I get what you're saying. I'm 100% with it. CAF is hurting itself by competing, especially now that like media rights are like the bread and butter of every league in the world. You're kind of hurting yourself competing with the Premier League. There are La Liga games that they're rescheduling just because they don't want to compete with Premier League games. So that part come with it, right? It's how we begin solving the problem that he's come out of the gate, not with, hey, we need to figure this out. He's come out of the gate with his own solution, right? And his solution is not anywhere close to what we need to have, right? And I get the point around what he's saying is not new. And to respond to the comment in there, that Ferguson also applied this. First of all, I just want to say this: Ferguson is not God. Like just because he was wrong. It was racist. I will be the first person to say that, right? That's not the solution. You don't necessarily apply, and it's look at what Ferguson has done. It's had like a long term ramifications for United. You can barely count on one hand how many African players United has. Like we've been very thin on United players. I mean, on African players. I will say this: we've always had more African players than City, so that's one thing I can count on because. But the thing is, we've not had as many African players, or we've not built our recruiting systems around recruiting from Africa because of that. So I'm not saying that, it's like when Napoli says it is bad, but United is. I criticize United about that. The point I'm trying to make is like right now, because Sam, let me ask you this question: do you think UEFA would be willing if CAF were to reach out to UEFA through FIFA and say, "Hey, are you guys willing to move this international break period up either closer to when we have our time or to a time that works for our climate and our zone that we can also have our games around that time?" Because I'm sure African players, when the UEFA and the Asia games are going on, would love to be playing AFCON at that time too, right? So is it possible to move it up? That conversation is a non-starter. Like UEFA and Asia don't even have enough respect for CAF to even begin that conversation of, okay, but to me, I'm like, that's when we start problem solving, right? Let's figure out if we're trying to solve a problem that has so many different entities in it, let's put all those entities on the same table and everybody's word and everybody's say has the same weight. And let's begin having those conversations. My problem is that's not happening. And I'm not going to sit and pretend like I'm the first person to come up with that. I'm sure it has come up before. But when it's CAF, when it's Africans, it's like, it's a back burner issue. It's like, let the clubs deal with them. But let's say right now with climate change, and this is a ridiculous, point to make, right? But all of a sudden, the climate changes in Europe, and they can no longer host it, and then they need to host it around the same as CAF. That conversation will happen. Why? Because they've been inconvenienced and they need to move it. That's the point I'm trying to make. Is the fact that it's not that we're shutting down solutions that people are coming up with. It's also not that we're saying that the problem at hand should stay as it is. But it's when we start talking about a solution, when the racist dog whistles start coming through, that's when I'm like, well, okay, cool. You want to take a hard stance and say, forget African players. I don't want them anymore. And also the statement he made, which I think was what really bothered me, was his words were, he's like, I won't be buying them anymore. I'm sorry. Like, first of all, like, this is not the 1600s where you're buying slaves and checking their teeth and seeing how strong they are and whatnot. But to me, that's what it was reminiscent of. It's like, you don't have any dominion over these individuals. So I'm going to show you that before I even sign a contract with you, I have the agency to say, no, I'm not going to sign with your team because you are starting to think that you have this personal ownership of these individuals. You don't. And so for me, I'm like, if we're going to have a conversation around solutions, let's begin that conversation as soon as possible, right? Because yes, is there a potential to move CAF to 4 years? Those will all be points that are made when we sit down to solve that problem. But if you're going to just get on, Wall Street of Italy or whatever, and just say whatever you want to say because you feel like you have the power, go ahead and say that. But when you turn around and there's, ramifications from that, we also have the agency to say, well, forget you. We're not going to do what you're saying, and we're also going to move in our way. And it's almost like mutual self-destruction. Like, all right, it's not going to work for you. It's not going to work for us either. But that's not how we begin solving. That's where I'm coming from. This is not how we begin solving the problem. It is a problem, right? Right now, the scheduling doesn't work. I've never been happy with the fact that CAF competes with like all the 5 leagues of Europe during the same time. I'm like, you guys will never ever be able to generate the kind of revenue. TV, or media companies will never sell you the same rights or buy the same rights from you as they're buying from even for Europa League and other. But so we're shooting ourselves in the foot there. But when we do want to sit down and have that conversation, I think all the entities need to be at the table and we can have that conversation as equals and we can come up with a solution.
Well, I think this thing can definitely just go a lot deeper. But with all these things being said, though, Jeff, let's look at it from this point. So, assuming the whole league around the world, maybe the European leagues, and they all say, you know what, if they say, okay, CAF, please move your games
Hmm.
from the time that you guys play to maybe end of the season. If you guys are gonna keep the 2 years, do you think it's gonna be conducive enough for Africa, like
But
in
but but see,
African?
that's the thing, right? There's a reason why they're not playing Europa games at the end of the season either, right?
Mhm,
Because your best players at that time haven't played 38 games in their league, haven't played Champions League or Europa League and whatnot. They're
mhm,
winded, so the
mhm,
quality of play you're gonna get from those players is diminished, right?
mhm,
So that is a consideration as well. And even if that's why when they do play Europa, there's still a break for people to
mhm,
be able to regenerate their energy and their strength and go into it and play their best. So for me, again, like all of those are like when we sit down to come up with a solution, factors to consider, right? It's like
mhm,
for us, one of those factors to consider is climate and weather because we can't play it during that time, right? Or is there a possibility that if this is going to be an issue, FIFA as an organization, as a global organization, can say, okay, you know what, we're going to invest in African stadiums and build like stadiums with roofs and whatnot to be able to get that. That becomes a plan, right?
yeah,
If a financial stake is needed from CAF to make that happen, a significant financial stake is needed from CAF to make that happen. That becomes a strategy on how we're going to address this problem. Because now, if you can build a stadium that is not impacted by these droughts and by these floods and rains, then it's like, okay, we're getting closer to solving the solution. To solving the problem, right? Those are all solutions that we can begin thinking about. And to me, that's where it starts from.
yeah,
We can sit here and we can list all the different factors that need to be considered. But the reality of it is, no one is actually sitting now. It doesn't seem like it from my vantage point that anyone is sitting there and going, okay, what are all the things that we need to consider for CAF? And what are all the things that we need to consider for UEFA? And what are all the things we need to consider for the Asian leagues and the South American leagues and everything? And then
mm,
what is the one threat or that one time frame that we can potentially have these games in a way that works for everybody? And for those who doesn't work for, what are the resources they need to make it work, right? And it's identifying that we're not all equal, right? I don't
mm,
when I say we're not all equal economically or financially speaking, some people will need some more help to make some of these things happen. Then okay, cool. What is the plan to begin getting the people who need the help so that they can get the help to
yeah,
make this reality? That's how you start it, right? But if you start off by shutting one person out of it because it's inconvenient for you, it's like, to Amicy's point, you're gonna realize very quickly how critical African players are to your leagues.
I think to that point, I think that's I really concur with him, Misty, on that one. For the first time on this show, I think most teams in the world, even around the world, and even it's funny. Trevor Noah actually did make this joke when France won the Champions League. I mean, not the Champions League, the World Cup, and
Yep,
he made a joke and said,
Africa
"Congratulations,
won.
Africa." And the ambassador for French really got upset, and he got furious. I mean, he really just went in and just said that we should not take the glory away from our fans. But again, that shows you how much power and how much strength, how much the presence of African players actually mean to the world of football. So with that being said, don't you guys think that maybe it's a high time that not the nation, I don't even care about AFCON anymore, because I feel like CAF is really gonna take care of the pockets and not really consider the players. Maybe the players maybe need a union in terms of what is really going on in order to take care of themselves. But we're gonna come back to that though. Let's just go for a quick commercial break and sell some products. So we could just stay online. But let's sell some products and we're gonna come back to that questions real quick. We're gonna be right back after these commercial breaks.
Hello, beautiful people of Ghana. This is Banahine Specialist Hospital. We are so excited to announce to our people Ghana that we are finally opened and we are accepting patients. At Banahine Specialist Hospital, our extraordinary physicians and nurses are here to provide a high quality medical service to our extraordinary patients. Our services include primary care services, maternal, neonatal, and pediatric services. We also have an in-house pharmacy we have x-ray and laboratory services available to you. Come to us for all your healthcare needs, and you will be happy you did, because we believe the health is wealth. Thank you, and stay blessed.
Welcome back, guys. Misty, I definitely want you to take this and run with it. We're talking about maybe the players possibly needing unions and stuff, but look, if we know anything about unionization, anytime you unionize, it actually prevents the owners. It forces them to make certain decisions, like limiting the signing of players. But again, I think we've talked about the impact of African players. I think right now, just right now, I think one of my coworkers and I were talking about how Liverpool actually misses Sadio Mane and everything. So, and that speaks to how much of a great player he is. And not to both of you guys not to attack me, but ever since you know Eric Bailly actually kind of had a his side on the bench. Manchester United's defense has been, and you could go in and I mean on and on and on and on about it. When Conte got injured, I mean I know he's French, but in African descent. When he got injured, a lot of things happened to the midfield of Chelsea, and that speaks to how. Do you think it's high time African players themselves actually have a union and to protect them with all these on the carpet racism that they actually just get it from the owners and other clubs around the world.
Well, I'm even surprised they don't even have an asset now. And it's strange because with how or where football is going, and you know how the African players are very important to the European leagues, I'm even surprised. This is something they should look at. Because they need a say, they need one voice, they need to be united, they need to fight for the cause of African football. Because what the decisions they take now has effect on the younger ones coming up. You understand? Because and our players should have they are top players. If I think was it 2, 3, 4 seasons ago that we had Obama Young and Salah and I think one other player all joined top scorers in and the Premiership. This is so our players should have a say. They should be one. They should have a union. They should forget about the chief crew or whatever they are. Have an African union, whatever player union or something. It's very necessary. We need it. We need it.
Yeah, I think I agree with Amisty in the sense of and this is something, especially when you do like labor unions or like trade associations, you need numbers to make it work, right? And I honestly feel like a huge miss on the part of a lot of players, a lot of black players in the league was during the whole George Floyd, racial
Mhm.
reckoning of not just America but of the whole world. There was a lot of room to do some of these things, right? So imagine if there was like I don't know if there is, there might be, but if there isn't, there was a huge miss. Imagine if there was like a black players association similar to like the NBA Players Association. Sam, if you remember, I think it was like 2013 or 2011. There was like the lockout, right?
Yeah, I
Where
remember. Yeah.
where players were like, you know what? Either you recognize this as an organization and understand the demands that we have and be able to meet us halfway, or players who are part of this organization do not play for you anymore. We'll come and stand there, we'll not do anything, or we won't even show up to the stadiums to begin with.
Mm.
And that has given the NBPA, like the NBA play National Basketball Players Association, like the power to really like negotiate toe to toe with owners today,
Mm.
right? For things that, and I think for me, and this is based on a personal experience, like once you have that, just that collective black, negotiating power, you're able to like add in, because again, as I'm talking about like global black, representation. You're now able to work in like the African issues as well, where it doesn't seem like it's just yet another organization. But then two is like you. Unfortunately, I feel like when you take Africans and you want to put us together to one, there's so much division. Everyone is worried about their personal check. They don't have the numbers enough to be able to drive that push. If you take United right now, we have like 3, 4 African players. If they join this organization, the owners go, okay, bye bye. Like they're
Mm.
losing 3 players who are French players, if we're being honest right now. And you have a team like Manchester United take a stand like that. it just becomes a dominant effect, right? But if you take away just the Africanness and you look at more like just black, you have a good number of players on there who can band together to be able to start something like this. And we make our agenda, our mandates as a subset of the broader mandates of this trade association or labor union. But there is an opportunity to do that, right? And be able to fight for these things. Because, like, I think one of the things that has been like I don't know, I can't, immediately point to those who fought for this, but like given like the I wouldn't say relaxation, but like the adjustments made in like, player eligibility once a player plays for a country and things like that. That is a huge thing that now really benefits. It started out with like really African and Indian or Caribbean players really wanted to be able to play for their homelands, right? And now it's like you have European players who are benefiting from it, right? So for me, I'm like, these things is similar to like a civil rights movement in America, and then now you have Asians and other races here who also benefit from it. These are just adjustments or relaxation in policy that will benefit all of us in the long run. But you need somebody through that wall first. And right now we may not have the numbers. So even if we have the numbers, we may not have the conviction in those numbers to be able to put something like this forward. I think a good strategy is more so approaching from like the Black Players Association, coupling it with a lot of like the demands that players have, around like racial issues in the leagues and like other issues that they have that they want to bring to the table, and then adding this issue as one of it to it.
So I only ask that question. Excuse me. I only ask that question because the continent of Asia players have a union that actually protects them, and I
They're
haven't noticed
organized.
any other place. But again, like Misty said, there are certain things that really clicks in your mind, and you ask yourself, "I'm surprised that this is not, these measures are not in place to protect the people." But just piggybacking off of that, I actually like our technical team to put our new logo up there. I want to ask you, because yeah, you can go first, but for the past few years, we've changed our Ghana Premier League logo based on a sponsor, and right now we just changed it to. Please correct me if I'm wrong. The we have a new deal with what is it? Bet Power and Power, like they say PAWA, and the deal is worth $6 million, which includes locker room bonuses for winning teams. So one of the main reasons why, according to the president, they actually made this public in terms of the winning teams, just so there wouldn't be any, kind of game fixing and everything. So everybody would just try to play to win. I mean, see, I want you to just tell me, what you think about the change of logo. I feel like it doesn't give us an identity because almost every single sponsor that we have, this is for 3 years. Assuming after 3 years they decide to leave, another sponsor might come in and just change the logo again. Do you think changing the logo several times to give that an identity to the league itself?
Well, okay, so this new logo came with the new sponsor. It's been over 5 years since the Ghana Premiership had a sponsor. You
Hmm.
understand? It's been in and out of trying to get sponsors and this. So this is like just the new face of how where of course this is the new FA president and other things. So this is what he seeks to do. So going forward, like it's a new beginning for us. So we hope that this logo takes us a long time. We had a logo, of course, that it wasn't structured then. They had issues. So for me, I think it's a new is like, and we hope we maintain these sponsors for long because it's been tough. The players have not been the Premier League players are not being paid well, and it's been hard for them. So yeah, I mean, to me, I think it's cool. I hope we maintain it and it goes for a long period of time.
Sam, I think you know how I feel about these things. Obviously, like I get what you're saying, right? It's like the sponsorship is definitely needed. Like $6 million into and I also want to shout out Mr. Easy because I hear he was like, a significant character behind the scenes making this happen. And if not, most of the funds are coming from his organization. It's great. However, I think if we're talking about identity, like to Sam's point, it's like, what if 3 years from now, Bet Power is like, okay, we didn't see the value that we wanted from it, so now Nido is going to be the new sponsor. Does it become the Nido Premier League? Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Like
mhm,
to me, like the Premier League itself, like if you take it as it is, it's one entity on its own.
mm,
It's sponsored by Bet Power, which for me is easily a tagline at the bottom, which can be Ghana Premier League, sponsored by Bet Power, right?
mm,
Or whatever it may be. But to change, because the logo really is embodiment of our identity,
mm,
right? To me, a sponsor doesn't. There's the Barclays Premier League, right? But unless the financial investment that Barclays has made is a long term binding, what's it called? So even with that, I don't think it's the smartest thing to do. But we're dealing with smaller stakes, right? And 6 million sounds like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, is a drop in the ocean. Um,
mm,
to change our entire identity and even logo, we're going to be creating a new logo over like a period of time. Where 3 years from now we change the logo, and it's not just the name but below the logo. It's like the visual representation of the logo itself. You take that and you extend it over a 10-15 year period, we're not going to actually have an identity, right? And I think it's part of where there's been years where Barclays as an organization may have not pumped as much sponsorship into the Premier League, but
true.
like the Barclays Premier League name has kind of like stuck to the point where now you just what's it called, identify it that way, so they've been able to keep it. But that's one thing. It's like if the sponsorship doesn't last long enough, do you change the name every 3-4 years whenever there's a new sponsor? My other thing is, especially with such like branding, co-branding efforts like this, if something happens, like there's always the risk of, something negative happening with that brand, and
Mm,
now you're associated with that brand, and now it becomes an effort to like backtrack and disassociate yourself from that brand. With this, it's so strongly linked or so strongly intertwined that it becomes a difficult effort. It becomes a whole rebranding that is needed. However,
mm,
if you retain the original logo, and if the original logo needed some, updating or some modernization, modernize it, update it. But then we know that forever and ever, this is going to be like the GFA logo. This is going to be the Ghana Premier League logo. And then all we're putting at the bottom is by Bet Power, by whoever the sponsor is, or sponsored by whoever the sponsor is. I think that's a more sustainable long-term strategy than, making everything about your league now from a visual standpoint about the sponsor. If they go out of business 2 years from now, we're back to what, the old logo or the new organization. So for me, that's kind of like where I'm not a super fan of. I'm not criticizing the sponsorship. It's more around like the imagery and like the logo and branding approach that you're taking. To me, it's too married to it. There should be some separation.
Well, yeah, and I think I can actually just argue for both sides. To be fair, I'm actually glad that we have a sponsor this year, and that's a positive thing. And kudos to Mr. Easy because I heard it was very detrimental to the sign in as well. But again, to also back Jeff up, I think this is very bad for business. I remember when right now Capital One at some point, I think a few years ago, sponsored the Premier League, and when the contract kind of went bad or something. They try so hard. Right now, Barclays kind of not owns, but they own the contract with Premier League, so they can call it the Premier League by Barclays or Barclays Premier League. But when Capital One was there, they used to they called it the Premier League, brought to you by Capital One. And I kind of feel like those are the kind of things that we need to actually just embody or just adapt in order to just move things forward. Because it's like looking at a team like Kumasha Santa Kotoko, right? You look at the logo and you see a porcupine. Imagine them having, different sponsors, and then every single time, like there's a different animal there. Like you're gonna grow up just missing the actual team, and that's something that you've actually grew up, you actually grew up on. But moving on to the next one, the technical team. Amisti, I actually want you to talk about this one. Technical team, please put up the next slide. But you did mention a few months ago, and I highly, really, really disagreed with you, and I think you and I have had this conversation over the phone individually. That as long as a player is fit enough, and as long as the player is willing to play, we should play him in the World Cup because we need experience.
Yes.
Our own grandfather Asamoah is back. He's actually
Obolo,
back training, and he's
Obolobo.
ready to play. I mean, so what do you think about that?
Okay, so I repeat, so long as the player is on form and is fit and is him and coming into the better than those there should play. I don't think Asamoah is ready for the Black Stars now. Asamoah should get a club, whether local or foreign, anywhere to play regularly, be on form, score goals, and he can be brought into the team. You understand? The statement he even made was just like a passing comment, like he's ready, he's training. But it doesn't mean that because he's training or Asamoah he'll be called into the national team. Then Massa, I'll not go and call the Stephen Appiers and those players back. You understand? He's ready, I agree, but it doesn't mean he should be called into the team now. I don't think Asmajan is better as a now than any of those players we have. You understand? So I don't think he deserves any call up now because he's actually clubless. He's just jogging around a football field, has a personal trainer training him. It doesn't mean, I don't think he deserves any call up now. So for this, yes, I agree. Asamajan is not ready for the Black Stars now.
You don't think Jeff? I want you to go ahead, man, because there are a
No,
lot
I
of
was gonna say, Jordan, you cried 30 years ago. Cry. We're trying to get rid of him, not 36-year-old or something like that. Like, come on, let's be realistic. Like, it's there's too much concept around football in Ghana. Like, it's too much concept. This, like, to I mean, this point, it was a passing comment, which have been like, okay, why I did, thank you, and then moved on. Like, I don't know why this is getting so much international focus because Asamoah is not Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo is 2 years older than Asamoah, and Cristiano Ronaldo is in much better form than most of our players. Wow, look at this, Charlie. Like, this is me. Like, let's stop. No, it's let's move on. Next one. This is not
Jeff.
something.
See, this what the see. Let me chime in. I mean, he did mention. I mean, today I think he's backtracking from his comments, which is obviously surprising. Um, But Countryman Songo called, and not just him. We have a lot of sports analysts in Ghana saying that talent-wise, everything is there already. We just have to prepare him physically. The World Cup is every footballer's dream, and I think as Samojan said, he said he has a little bit of energy to prove himself once again.
Sam,
And
sorry. Let me quickly respond to that. Asamoah is not more talented than Ronaldinho.
well, that's the thing, Jeff. And see, that's the thing. I think Jeff, when we started the show, you did mention that when we talk about our nation, Ghana, we actually live off of history.
Mm-hmm.
We live off of
Samuel
history.
Wame.
Everybody wants to just look at the historical thing that Samoa has done, not necessarily looking at what he's doing or what he's capable of doing right now. So we have a very fascinating or high profile sports personnel or broadcaster like Countryman Songo actually advocating for him.
Sorry,
We have
Sam. There's an echo. I think I missed it. It might be from your end.
you might have to mute yourself. Yeah, you have this high profile broadcaster like Countryman Songo. You have the past players like John Pinto. You have all these players actually advocating for him and everything. As of August 16th, he did declare his intentions, to play. It wasn't a passing comment. The man is serious, and he said he's training intensively to shed weight for the World Cup. Don't you guys think maybe we could probably use him as a locker room experience player, not necessarily on the field? Because he can go ahead.
See, let me get back to my point. You see, so for instance, if today Asamoah gets a club in maybe let's say Norway or Sweden and plays regularly and is the top scorer of the Swedish league, plays in the Champions League, and qualifies his team and is playing in the Champions League, do you think he should be called for the World Cup when he's on form? For me, if he's ready, see, me personally, I don't care about the age. I don't care about, you should just be ready. And what Asamajan brings into the team is something different. And with experience, you can't buy it. So if he's on form and he's playing for a club, I think he should be called. But as of now, and in this state, with this weight of about 500 kilos, I don't think he should be playing for. He shouldn't play for any club side. You understand? So I'm not like backtracking on the point I made earlier. I'm just saying that, for instance, in this stage, if he gets a club, he trains well and he's fit and he's scoring goals, and we play a friendly match before the World Cup, and he comes and he delivers. He plays against maybe a Netherlands in a friendly and he scored goals, and I say he shouldn't be called. I don't know why. I don't know what reason. Just because he's old. Ibrahimovic is playing at 40 years. You understand? So me, I just want, if you anywhere you are, if you're on form, and with Asamoah's experience, he's at the whole Africa, not Ghana, the whole Africa, our top goal scorer in the World Cup. In the World Cup, since the World Cup started in 1930, Africa's top scorer. So if he's still playing in his own form, I actually don't. I think he should be called. But as of now, he's not on form, so fine. With locker room experience, yes. Now most clubs outside have strikers coaches. He can be brought on board to do that job, train our strikers. I think it's not a bad idea. You understand? He doesn't really have to be part of the team to play. Being a strikers coach will be fine, or maybe motivating the boys will be fine. There are other ways he can be brought into the team. But now, as a player, I definitely don't agree. I don't even think the coach is even thinking of calling him up.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Sam, to what you were saying around like renowned journalists saying that, oh, even John Painter on them saying, I'm glad they're not the ones making the decision, and I think the one point that Amisi and I agreed on a while back was the fact that players squads are selected on the training pitch. So if he goes and he trains well, sure. Like, it's like, but my thing is to get a call up, there's a criteria. Like we're taking it back to making the whole thing a scientific experiment, not an art, creativity experiment. It's a criteria. That's what Missy is saying. If you're playing club football and you are on form, you get called up. But even getting called up doesn't guarantee playing time. You get called up, and it is in training that the coaches pick those who are going to start and those who are going to be on the bench and those who are not even going to make the roster, right? So for me, it's if we can go through all of that, I have no issue against him. As I'm sitting here today, if you tell me Ibrahimovic is going to come play for United and he's willing to sit on the bench whenever he's tired, but like I'll take it. He can perform, he can score goals. I'll take it. And this is not. We took a player, Cristiano Ronaldo, who's 37 years old, and he's doing it. He's performing, so he's earning his spot on the roster. But to look at any other reason to say, oh, he's talented, oh, he's handsome, oh, he's this, like, so what? Those are not the criteria with which we're picking players. And it's like, if we're going to look at those things to pick, then it's not him alone that we should be picking. That criteria should be applying to all the movie actors and the musicians who look better than he does. Like, what are we basing this decision on? It's a decision that we need to make. What are we basing it on? Based on his past performance? Okay, well, what is his most recent performance? The guy has not played club football in years. Like, I think he tried out for East Legon, some team in Legon, whatever. And even that local team that is not in the top 5 teams in Accra, he couldn't make that roster. So what makes us think that, like, he's going to make this is wasting people's time. And unfortunately, Otoado and his management team are going to sit down for press conferences and they're going to field questions like this. And I'm like, what are we wasting this time on? I think if you ask me, Asamoah needs to come to terms with the fact that in his twilight years, in his prime, he chose to go get money over sustaining a good playing career. And he got that money. He has a $3 million home in Ghana that we all know about. Enjoy that and move on. Enjoy that, because if he was serious about his playing, one, he wouldn't have left and went to Saudi Arabia or wherever he went to go get the money. And him playing in competitive leagues would have kept him on form. He would have taken his diet and his training seriously. He could be playing right alongside Cristiano Ronaldo. But he didn't. He made a conscious choice to go for money. I'm not saying it's a bad decision. I'm not saying it's a good decision. It was a decision he made, and he needs to stick with that. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't go for the money, and then now that you've gotten your fill of the money, now you want us to still give you the playing time. Must sit down. It's a waste of time.
No, I think we can criticize him for the decision he made. I think, Jeff, we have to be fair to not just him but to ourselves. We owe that to to the people, the fans, and the nation of Ghana. He made a bad decision. In the world of sports, I think everybody talks about it. The last time I was watching BBC Sport, and they talked about even in within Southampton, they talk about they've never had a striker. I mean, he was there for what? He wasn't even there for a whole season. And then they talked about how much of a prolific striker he was. And again, he chose to follow money. And the thing about it that you guys mentioned is, if he was playing like Zlatan, who has actually been taking care of himself, you'd be surprised to know how old Zlatan is, but he's still competing at a high level. But he has not. Asamoah Gyan hasn't. And the last time Misty and I were talking, what sports is he playing in Ghana? Tennis. The man is playing tennis like he's retired. He is mentally, he's gone. And I was listening to one of his interviews, and I think he said when he saw the bracket and saw Uruguay in it, he just said, "Oh, I need revenge."
That's a personal problem.
You know what I mean? So, and I don't think you're being unfair to him by just pointing out his flaw, which really needs to be discussed.
No. So let me correct that, Sam. I just want to really correct that. Personally, the decision he made, I thought it was a great decision.
Yeah,
because.
Jeff. I mean,
it was a great decision for economic reasons. It wasn't a great decision for football reasons, right? But you have to come to terms with it. It's the same thing I think we were talking about in that chat last time. Look at Hulk. Look at all these players, right?
Whoopi Mikel is still playing.
Ramirez
still playing.
Ramirez, Chelsea player, right? They all made the decision to go to China, to go to Saudi Arabia, to go to these places where the footballing competition is not that high, but the money is good. Okay. Me, I like money. I would never talk
at the peak of the level, all these players that you're talking about at the peak of the level played for high level clubs, and they actually got the name embedded in
they got more money for
and
it.
That's the thing. We can't really pinpoint, besides the likes of Michael Essien and Steven Appiah in the Italian league, and maybe Sule Muntari, who won with Jose Mourinho. We can't really pinpoint any specific Ghanaian player who has actually gone out and played at a high level and just come home
for a long time.
We can't do that. But I think that's something that we could table for next week about how these players take care of themselves in order to play for the long haul. But before we log it, I missed the everybody just have about 2 minutes to actually just wrap up the day. I missed it. You can go ahead.
Okay, so as I was saying, the Black Stars is ready for the World Cup. We'll be going for to the semi-finals, and we'll meet we'll score Brazil in the quarters. So Ghana will be winning the World Cup for final. Trust me.
I like this energy.
Yeah,
I love it.
Mark it. I want you to mark it that we'll get 7 points out of our group. We'll be first. We'll meet Brazil in the round of 16. We'll beat them. And I think we'll meet Cameroon and we'll also beat them. Then for the semis and final, we'll take it up from there. But we have a good team. We are ready. Asamoah Gyan is not going to the World Cup. Trust me. It's just a joke thing. Yes, just do it. And we'll be fine. Ghana Sports is going. We are looking at building our pitches, and club licensing is working. So this season, I pray you guys watch our local league. You need it.
Is it gonna be on TV?
It's going to be on TV online. Now we have a lot of foreign players in our league. Only Asante Kotoko alone has about 5 Cameroonians,
Okay.
Yes, Hasselhoff has about one or two foreigners. So now, yeah, there's a lot of investment in the league. So we'll be fine. Some won't be
All
laughing at
right,
us.
Jeff, we have about 2 minutes. I don't know what this guy is smoking, thinking Ghana is going to get to. I'm going to be a huge advocate and say no, but you know what? It's something that it's a dream that he's living, and I hope to see it come true. But
Now,
uh,
me, my thing is Ghana in between World Cups. Yeah, we don't do anything. But when it's time to perform, yeah, we'll be ready. So for me, I'm like,
Ghana is a tournament team, yes.
yeah,
So
we're a tournament team. Yeah,
yeah,
the words I want to use are not really appropriate, but it's like when we have to show, we're showboys. That's why our country is run by a showboy, right? So when it's time to perform, it's a corner, but you're ever
yeah.
ready.
We'll
But I
deliver.
mean, one point I want to make to close it out is, and then going back to the whole Asamoah Gyan thing. For me, it's funny because I thought about it. Right, it's like
mhm,
while I was saying it, I was thinking about. I'm like, if my child one day, let's say he's like in his late 20s, and he's a professional, athlete, and it's time to say, okay, I'm going to look at what Jamie Vardy did, for instance, right? Has stuck
mhm.
with Leicester. Jamie Vardy could have left Leicester and made so much money after they won the Premier League, right? But he stuck with Leicester throughout. He's played at a high level. He's one of the most prolific strikers in the Premier League, but he doesn't get as much of the shine that he gets. He doesn't get as much of the money that he gets, but he plays his football at a high level that, unfortunately for him, Harry Kane, because of Harry Kane, he'll never get to lead England, but his football is still like he can still get a call up to
He
England.
still gets call ups,
Yeah, he still
every
gets
single
call up.
time. Just to sit on the bench, but he still gets call ups,
Yeah,
to play in all these games.
but with that said, and the point I wanted to land with is, at the end of the day, for me, it's a transaction. It's your
Mm,
play. There's a reason why teams sign contracts. It's a business. You're
true.
going into, and if you ever lose sight of the fact that it's a business that you're participating in, and the asset or the commodity you're selling is your body, and you forget that, teams will treat you and use every last breath you have, and then when you're done, they will dump you and they'll move on to the next best thing. So for me, I support Asamoah Gyan in his decision that he made 100%. If my child is a top scorer in the Premier League and some Mongolian team goes, Masa, come here, we're gonna pay you twice what Mbappe gets paid today. I am holding him by his ear by myself. We're going there. We're going to give you the money, because when he's in his 40s and he can no longer play, he's going to thank me for it. So,
Yeah,
but the thing is, when he's in his 40s and he can no longer play, and he comes back and he's trying to make a run at it again, I'll be the first to tell him, Masa, sit down, like go enjoy your money. So for me, I either direction that a player takes, I have no issue with it. My thing is, once you make a decision, come to terms with it. There are benefits to that decision, enjoy it. There are drawbacks to that decision, be okay with it and move on with your life. You can't come and put a whole country in a hostage situation like this, where we're trying to go and get to semifinals, and I think I would do a Fusimi there coming trying to do, like we're not gonna do that. Enjoy the money. The house he lives in, I've driven past it before. It's very nice. Enjoy it and let's leave us alone. That's all I have to say about that.
I kind of wished everybody in Ghana, including these high level prolific broadcasters and past players, will not hype him up just as much as, because those are the ones with the power and influence. I hope they could just understand it from the way we look at it, and just notice that, you haven't played competitive football since 2019 against Egypt, and you're not as good as you are anymore. But
Since
but
when is logic like that working in Ghana?
exactly, and that's the reason why I brought it up, right? Because I mean, the three of us sit here and we know exactly what it takes to play at a high level, especially in the World Cup. Players, you watch the Premier League, and players go home, and when it's time to mention to call up players, they sit there with their families just hoping that their names are called. But it's not like that back home, right? Now everybody is sizing them up, and to the point, as far as Countryman Songo is comparing him to Inaki Williams, saying that if we are calling Inaki Williams, we need to let Asamoah Gyan play.
Sam,
Say
my problem with you is you called Countryman Songo a renowned journalist.
no, but Jeff, I mean, you have to look at it though. He's a
It starts with
celebrity.
you.
He's a celebrity
Asamoah
sports journalist in Ghana,
yes,
right?
Asamoah Gyan is like Shatawale. He's a crowd puller. Anything he says, he has a crowd following. And Asamoah Gyan is someone who has everyone likes. He does a lot of good to these journalists. So definitely, financially, he gives them gifts and other things. He's a rich player. So when he speaks, he has people support him. So Tanchuma Songo, you know he's not on the normal level like the normal human being. So for him,
Yeah,
forget
obviously, to your point, to say you could do Grammy. If we are the Grammys and they say Ghana, bring your best musician out, you think Ghanaians
that.
are going to push Atawale up?
Never, never. He's just a company. Asamoah is like for the fans. He's a fans favorite.
Yeah,
So of course, you have people support him.
he
So
can do
for that one,
halftime show. After no every John, no, he said,
yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah, 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 that's bad. So he's not a serious guy. So
You guys don't respect your,
Often as so we're tired
your
of him.
top four right in
uh,
Africa. But
He's like
I
we
mean,
forgot we didn't talk about the penalty.
hey, don't bring back memories right now, man. But you know what? This has been a fun session. I miss you guys, and it's actually great to have you guys back. We try to keep this going. To all our fans that watched, that stay tuned. McDunn, Emmanuel, you say you're watching this live from Accra and you're really enjoying the show. We appreciate you guys so much. Ghana Boy 49, Freeman, Ideas, and not everybody else watching this on Facebook, YouTube, and StreamYard, as well as audio streaming platform. We do appreciate you guys so much. Keep the love coming. Once again, I appreciate my co-host Jeff and King and Misty. I know it's getting late, so we just definitely let you go to bed. But I appreciate you guys coming on and talking about this hot topic. We're gonna keep it going until we can make a change that we all think Ghanaians deserve. Until we meet again, guys, it's a pleasure and good night.
Good night.
thank you. Good night.
C'est mon père, ça me fait bien. Je me fie et non kotu, Era1 Radio. C'est mon père, je me fais bien. Je me fie et non kotu, Era1 Radio. Oh, ayum pamchima, asam pamchima. Era1